Okay, so we've gone over the pressure carburetors. Didn't write notes, but we've gone over all the drawings of it.
Yep.
So now we can talk about, we can write notes. That is way too thick. Okay.
It's like Disney writing. I was going to say princess.
You say what I think he said?
Yeah.
I think the funniest part is it didn't come from me.
Advantages. Well, what are some advantages? You should know all this by now.
Icing.
Yep, all I have to do is get this to less prone to icing. To ice. I like icing on my cake. Especially throttle ice since the discharge nozzle is after the venturi. After the venturi. Let's see.
Aerobatics.
Aerobatics. Okay. GR. Gravity and inertia have little effect. Let's see. Atomizing fuel under pressure results in a better mixture, better, smoother engine. Pressure results in smoother engine. Well, according to this source here, battery economy.
22 gallons an hour?
Which shipping 22 gallons per hour.
That's the diaphragm.
Oops, we make this E. Sorry. E. Protection against vapor lock. Why so?
It's under pressure.
Because the fuel is delivered under pressure. You're really going to make me write all this stuff. Basic principle of operation. These buttons, and I touch them all the time. Basic principle of operation. Let's see. Carburetor senses mass airflow to regulate fuel pressure to a metering system. So, the carburetor senses mass airflow. How does it do that? Well, what is mass airflow?
Ran air?
Plus
Venturi.
venturi suctions. The two tend to sense the mass of the airflow, so it can now compensate for going up. It's air density, loss of air density tends to do that better. Let's see, mass airflow to regulate the fuel pressure. Regulate fuel pressure to the metering system. Let's see. Yeah, we can skip that. I'll skip some stuff here. So that makes it controls. Controls the fuel to the engine. Oops. By sensing two forces. What are those two forces?
Pressure.
Metering force.
Think of the big picture.
Air metering force.
Air metering force. And fuel metering force. Let's see. All right, so we can put operation. Operation. Let's talk about the regulator unit. We have air metering force. And we're going to talk about the PR58 as we're doing this. So picture this one in your head.
Okay.
Got it? Which I think you have a drawing. Did you go skiing this weekend?
Oh, yeah. Not skiing, though. I don't. Skiing's lame.
Snowboarding.
Yes.
Oh,
You know what's not lame?
Sunscreen.
Sunscreen.
I pre-ordered my summer tan. You know, I gotta.
and his skin grafting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So picture this one. You do have a copy of this in your lab sheets, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you had color crayons, then you'd have something to do. Air metering for try and color in the lines, so I will be judging on that.
I was Army, not Marine.
So you can color within the line. That just means you didn't eat the color crayons. Okay. All right, air metering force. We have chamber A. Chamber A. What is chamber A?
Impact
Here.
air.
Chamber A is regulated or air inlet from impact tubes. So air inlet from impact tubes. It is a positive pressure. That tends to do what to the poppet?
Push
it to the right. Open the poppet. What else is in chamber A?
Oh, you
Yep.
yeah.
A spring is installed in A to open poppet. At idle speeds. Why does it need that?
Because there's
No air.
no pressure.
Idle speeds because not enough AMF at idle to open poppet. So that's why you have a spring. Let me see. Chamber B is
Venturi.
okay. It is a negative pressure. A negative pressure or suction that tends to assist A to open poppet. And of course we have the idle spring, which I already talked about. And this would be like I, which is A. This is 5, which is B, which makes it confusing. So what's this 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to move down to automatic mixture control. Automatic mixture control, we'll say valve. There. Let me see. On this particular carburetor, it is installed in the impact. Impact air inlet line. If you have the automatic mixture control, what do we need in conjunction with the automatic mixture control to make sure that this whole thing works? Remember?
You know,
Caution
caution
to
low
bleed
between
valve.
alpha and beta.
Oh, yeah.
Will require a bleed between A and B to keep air moving. Otherwise, a stagnant air and closing off a line to stagnant air does not solve anything. Let me see. That's the PR58 does that. Or we could do PR58. What is the PS5? PS5 does it different. Let me see. It is literally installed between A and B. So if you remember, there, down here, it's installed here, between A and B. So it makes the bleed between A and B. If you don't have an extra bleed, it is the bleed. Shut off the bleed or open the bleed. All right, what comes next? Fuel metering force. Fuel metering force. Well, we have chamber C, metered fuel pressure. Metered fuel pressure is a positive pressure. Positive pressure works against D, but we could say assists A and C. That's not what I meant to write. A and B. And we're talking about C. It is held, be more specific here. The pressure is held constant pressure is held constant throughout the entire range of operation by what? What holds C constant? Discharge nozzle. Discharge nozzle. Or the discharge nozzle. Okay. Anything else we got to say about C? All right, good. We'll talk about this one. Then D. D is what? Unmetered fuel pressure. It is a positive pressure that tends to
Push the popper to the left.
open or close?
Close.
Close. close the poppet. And then we've got last chamber E, which is, well, we had unmetered here, so inlet pressure. I call it fuel pressure or inlet fuel pressure. Somewhere between 9 to 14 psi. Causes the poppet to open or close, or none of the above.
Close. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Does not have an effect on poppet because it's way out over here.
Mhm.
And whatever is here, if you could say, well, the end of the poppet, well, but the other side is also has that, so it would not. Equalizes, yep. All right. All right. I'm going to go through and give stuff random numbers. Okay, random numbers. So, let me see. Operation, we already said operation once in there. Operation 2 then. I think we had operation up here. Let me see. That shouldn't be operation. That should be chambers. Right? That would make more sense. And then that could just be operation. Don't need the 2. Operation. All right. As air enters the carb, air proportional to velocity hits the impact tube. Hits the impact tubes. So, as we already said, this higher pressure enters chamber what? A. Okay. Enters A. And tends to open. And we will give this a value of a random value. It's not really random, but it's not the true value of 1. So I'm just going to say it's 1. Like 1 PSI if you want. 1 pressures. Got it?
Mhm.
What's the matter?
We're just trying to read your
Want me to slow down?
No, it's okay. We got it.
Random? Yeah, because that just doesn't work out. Well, I'm having problems because I don't have the software loaded for this, and every time I hit one of these buttons, it screws everything up. So I'm really having, I have to hold the pen all funny now. So it's bad enough before, now it just got worse. 2, as air flows through venturi, as air flows through venturi, air flows venturi, low pressure is created. Low pressure is created. All right, this lower pressure enters. Enters what?
Chamber B.
B. All right. Wait. Enters B, and we will give this a value of 0.25 because I want to. Absolute. So it's not a negative, we'll just say absolute. And why do I say absolute? Because it's a suction, right? And so a suction, we can have it a negative value, but if we just assign it an absolute value of 0.25, because whether it's a positive or a negative, it tends to open the poppet. So just call it 0.25, just the way it's plumbed in there, it helps. So we can just do that. All right, okay. Let me see. Make sure this is right. Okay. So we know that A plus B equals air metering force. And I've assigned this how much? My example?
1.25.
1.25, just my example, just trying to do this. All right, then go to the fuel side. So unmetered fuel is, let me see, shorten this up. Unmetered fuel is delivered to E, has no effect on the poppet, somewhere between 9 to 14 psi. 9 to 14 psi. Let's see. We have the air metering force. F. Okay, so we've got air metering force happening. We have fuel coming in, but we don't have anything yet in D or C. C or D. So, but air metering force opens the poppet valve. So if the air metering force opened the poppet valve, we are beyond idle.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would be what holding it open?
The spring.
Spring. So if we have AMF, we're beyond idle. So opens poppet. Allowing unmetered fuel to enter D. Maybe I shouldn't have called that unmetered fuel because really it's not called, to be consistent, it's inlet pressure. So,
Yeah.
so I could say
Yeah.
inlet pressure. Delivery AMF opens poppet, allowing unmetered fuel to enter D, or it actually is unmetered at that point, allowing, let's say, fuel to enter D. Now that is unmetered. I like that better. Unmetered. And this pressure is more or less than E. Less than E. Why? What caused the pressure reduction?
Volume.
Flows through the poppet and reduces the pressure.
The restriction of the poppet and the seat. So it is less than E. Because poppet acts as a restriction. All right, so fuel in D pushes the poppet to the right or to the left, open or close?
Close.
Pushes the poppet closed. Okay, fuel flows around through E into D. Now it goes around. It's going to go through all the metering stuff. Come back around, up through here. Sorry, I should do this with the little laser.
Up to C.
Through here, around here, through the metering stuff, back around here, through this line here, but then up into
C.
C. So yeah, let's see. Metered fuel pressure enters C. Enters C. Hey, metered fuel pressure is more or less than D.
Less.
Metered fuel pressure is less than D because it's metered. Because the fuel passed. Through the FCU. What's FCU stand for?
Fuel control unit.
All right, fuel control unit and pressure is now, we'll say regulated. or held constant by what?
Discharge.
Discharge.
Discharge nozzle.
By the discharge nozzle. And we will give this a pressure of 5 psi. Because the poppet needs to be in equilibrium, because poppet needs to be in equilibrium. D must equal what? So we said A plus B equaled how much in my example? 1.25. And that is an opening force. And D equals, sorry, C. C equals, that's what we're trying to figure out. C equals how much?
5.
5, and that tends to open. Then D is our force that needs to close. So that must equal
6.25.
6.25. Good, that's what I wrote in my notes too. So, good. Are you with me on that?
Yes.
All right, so if this is, let's see, pen. A, I said was 1,
1.
and it goes to the right. B was 0.25, going to the right. C is 5, going to the right. So that's 5, 6.25 to be in equilibrium. This might be 6.25 going that way, and it's in equilibrium. So everything is great. Let me see, do I want to see that? Differential pressure of D minus C is, okay, we do that.
So the fuel going in, you said, was 9 to 14 psi.
Yep, it doesn't
That-
matter.
Yeah, okay. But
Right?
because that poppet would just bring it back down to.
Doesn't matter. That's over here.
Yeah.
Has no effect.
Fuel
I mean, we could make it
Oh, yeah.
25, and I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
see that would, well, it
That's
would,
because it passes through that restriction,
could pass us through the
Yeah.
restriction.
and then it becomes the 6 point. Okay.
Yep.
Never mind. I feed myself with the same questions this year.
Yeah, so what if I did? I made this 25 psi. We can't go crazy, but 25. That's way too much, right? Well, what happens? More fuel is going to squeak in through E, right? It would tend to make D go up or down. Up. So I've never done this exercise before. So we have a spike in fuel pressure for some reason. Goes up 25. So the pressure in here gets too high. So what's it going to tend to do? Close pop it till it gets to back to equilibrium. Just close it off. That'll work, I would think, within reason. All right, so fuel metering force. Fuel metering force must then equal what two things? D minus
A,
C? Equals fuel metering force. Because D is pushing to the left and C is pushing to the right, so whatever the difference is what you're going to get left over. Which in our case was 6.25 minus 5, which equals
1.25.
1.25. Where did we see that number? Air meter force. They're in equilibrium. Just look at it a different way. All right, I'm not going to write all this stuff. I'll do it here. I think it'd make more sense anyway. Change my pen. Say, all right, let's add some throttle. Okay, open the throttle up. Whoosh. That controls the throttle valve. So throttle valve opens a little bit more, allows more air to start coming down the venturi, which means more fuel is going to hit the impact tube. And so we'll do this slowly. And let's say we get a new value here in chamber A of 1.25. What's that going to tend to do to the poppet?
Open.
Open it. Okay. But we also had an increase of airflow through the venturi. So that 0.25 we had, it's going to go up. So let's add another 0.25 to that. So now this would be 0.5. That is, those two together are going to open the poppet. Well, what's in C? 5. So that is going to open the poppet until D gets to some pressure. So let me see. Air metering force is now 1.75. And we have 5 there. So, well, we just add it. Plus 5. So it must equal
6.75.
6.75. Or we could say 6.75 minus 5 equals 1.75.
1.75.
Oh, you
So those two equal each other. So air metering force equals fuel metering force, so it is back in equilibrium. Or we could look at it a little differently and say, okay, so we had air metering force went up. Okay, so what's going to happen now? Air metering force is going to go up. It's going to open the poppet. More fuel is going to come through here. More fuel came into D. Pause there. And before it moves the poppet, we just say more fuel came in. More fuel came around here, went through the metering jet. So do I have more fuel pressure here? Well, you kind of would, except it's going to come around here. And as the fuel pressure builds up in this line, discharge nozzle is going to open it, dropping it back to 5, which is seen right there. So now this has to open more to keep this in equilibrium and keep that at 5, because this went up in D, means more fuel is going through, which means that the pressure went up, so this had to open up to keep the pressure the same. Pressure stays the same, but what happens to the flow?
Increases.
Flow out the discharge nozzle increases, which is a good thing because we just added more air. Okay. Yeah, that was about 2 pages.
Sweet.
And we could do the same thing backwards, decreasing it. I'm not going to do that. Okay, moving right along. Looking good. Let's see. Make this 4. Main parts of pressure carb. We have the throttle unit. Throttle unit. What do we have in there?
Probably.
Throttle blade. Let's go with the impact tubes. Impact tubes. We have the venturi, or maybe many venturis, and throttle valve. How about that? So throttle unit. We have the regulator unit. Which automatically regulates the fuel. It contains chambers A, B, C, and D. And E, really. Or not, if it's the smaller carburetor. But the PR58 has that, plus 2 diaphragms. The poppet valve. Yeah, we could write, I don't want to write too much here. I'm tired. We could put our vapor return, idle spring,
Bleed.
the blade, what?
Bleed.
The bleed. Oh yeah.
Would it also have like the economizer and accelerator pump, or is that?
Not really. Definitely not in this one, because it's going to be pretty much this square right here. So economizer's over here. What else did you say? Throttle valve over here. So we're just going to look at that. Those are separate systems. So we could take that out. We could throw away the economizer. It'd still work. Throw away the throttle valve or the Accelerator still works, so those are separate systems. Fuel control unit. So that receives fuel under varying pressures from the regulator. It receives fuel. From regulator. And meters it fuel to discharge nozzle. So that would contain one or more metering jets and your metering valves. Like the idle needle. Idle needle valve. And let's see, D, and the discharge nozzle. That injects fuel into airstream. You see, it may mix air from, that's not right. We'll say A. I said B in my notes. That can't be right. Because we got air from A. Couldn't mix air from B, could you? And I said it is a form of a pressure regulator or pressure relief valve. I think pressure relief valve makes more sense. Which is to say, it keeps downstream pressure constant. It usually has a fuel shut-off spring. So now we're going to start looking for this item, fuel shut-off spring. It's not the only thing, the pressure carb isn't the only thing that has it. One of the problems you have if you just have some sort of pressure regulator with, we just had this line coming up here without any shut-off springs. We have it open right here. As you try and shut off the engine, you have suction right here. It will start drawing fuel out and just keep drawing fuel, and then you can get into a diesel engine that diesels and kind of runs off. Got to be able to shut that fuel off. When you want it shut off, it's got to shut off. So when you lose a little, you need a certain amount of pressure to keep this open. And as soon as you lose that certain amount of pressure, this is going to slam shut and not allow anything to go. It's like, yeah, if you don't give me at least 2 psi, you're not running over here. And so I just made up that number. There's a fuel shut-off spring. Let me see. Keeps fuel from dribbling into engine. At ICO. What does ICO stand for? Idle cutoff. Got to know that. It's actually printed on the side a lot of times of carburetors, pressure carburetors, fuel injection, ICO. So if you don't know which way is full throttle, which way is rich, which way is lean, look for the ICO. That's lean. All right, in my notes I go through all the same stuff with the Bendix, which is pretty much the same thing. So the Bendix. PS5. That's not the 5. PS5. Isn't that a video game console?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were throwing us all off that day because
said it was
everybody
small.
thought you were referencing something.
Yeah.
Oh.
I said it was small, but it's like one of the biggest.
No, the PS5, it's small, it's about that big.
Yeah. You said that.
But the console was like a
The
big
console is like.
Console's big. Yes, so that would make sense for me to talk about a pressure carburetor and say, you know what, now I'm going to talk about a Microsoft system that everybody wants. So it's just, it operates the engine. All right, what are my chambers here? I think this PS5 would be way more expensive.
Oh, definitely.
So,
I don't know. It's all for quite a bit.
Yeah, you could-
$600. No, on eBay.
what is A?
Store price.
PS5. What is A?
Ram air.
A is,
Impact.
okay, impact. Tends to do what to the poppet?
Open.
Open. Chamber B is,
Suction.
tends to
Thank you.
open. Air metering force then is AMF equals A plus B. This is almost a review now. Chamber C, A, B, C is still metered fuel. Chamber C, so A, B, C. C's doesn't have a diaphragm, it's still metered because it went across. Metering jet, and it's on this side, and it has the idle needle there. All right, metered fuel, so that leaves D is, let's see, D metering force. I wrote something weird in my D, we're going to call it, yeah, unmetered fuel. What is that? And then E would just be
Inlet pressure.
inlet pressure. Purple. What do they call it specifically? Purple inlet fuel pressure. That's where I got it from, right there. Okay, operation, we already talked about that. Pretty much the same. Let's see. Let's just go through it real quick here. See what I wrote. Fuel enters E and flows into D. So far, it sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Either because
A and B push.
A and B have enough fuel, or
Or
the idle spring is holding it open. All right. Either because idle spring, yes. Fuel flows from D past metering jet to idle needle valve. Fuel flows from D past the metering jet to the idle needle valve. Idle needle valve. All right. Nope. There we go. That picture's good. At idle position, idle needle valve regulates fuel. So at the idle position, what regulates fuel? How come it has to regulate the fuel? Because yeah, the AMF is just a spring. It's stupid. With 2 O's. No. Yeah, thank you for that. All right. He's like, I gotta laugh. You're just gonna stand there until somebody laughs. As throttle is open, the idle needle valve opens and does not regulate fuel. It is now larger than the main metering jet. So as it opens, this opens, it being this thing, as it opens up, it stops regulating fuel, because what regulates fuel now? I wish I quit doing that. Main metering jet does that. So at idle, that right there does the metering. And then when this is out of the way far enough, we have air metering force, then this does the metering. Okay. Fuel, let's see, fuel flows next to the discharge nozzle, needle valve, and then to discharge nozzle. So through this, up here, straight there, right to there. What do I have to say about that? Discharge valve is spring-loaded with a diaphragm. Spring keeps the valve closed until proper pressure opens the valve. Why is that important? This spring right there.
Oh, so when you go to auto cutoff, it closes.
Right, so it's going to stay closed until
Enough pressure.
we have enough pressure here to overcome spring plus, that is that venturi suction? Yeah, it is. So when we have enough air metering, so I take that back, spring is going to hold it closed until fuel pressure plus venturi open it, allowing fuel to now flow through. When we lose venturi or fuel pressure, it's going to close to shut things down. Where am I at here?
We would lose both at that point.
Yep, that's what I said. Also helps to maintain a constant pressure downstream. Air from a, okay, what do we have right here?
Air.
Air from chamber
Okay.
coming up here to
Discharge.
emulsify. All right, we talked about the, are you okay with me not writing this stuff down?
Yeah, they're very similar.
Yeah. All right, mixture control allows air to bleed from chambers
A and B.
A and B. Let's see, as air bleeds from A and B, what happens to air metering force? Air metering force goes down. If air metering force goes down, the poppet
Closes.
closes, causing less fuel to flow and leaning out the mixture. At ICO, which stands for idle cutoff, what happens? The ramp hits the arm, pushing the idle cutoff plunger into the spring. Remember, this is not a pivot point. That is just a ball on the end of a whatever piece of spring steel. This is the pivot point, so this ball here comes up towards here, causing the poppet to get sucked in and close right there. Remember, this is not the seat. Needle, that's not the seat, and that's not the needle. Seat's right there, going this way. That's closed, that's open. So that right there, to me, just kind of stops how far is it going to get open. And we have a cutaway of this you can look at, if anybody cared. Automatic mixture control. Where's my AMC on this?
In the book, it would be down at the bottom.
There it is. Automatic mixture control. Let's see. This is chamber
A.
chamber B. So they just move this down this way. It's kind of hard to see with just white. Let me see.
So there's an angle and an auto.
Let me see. Can we do this? Let's try this.
Does it get out of the slide? I think?
Yeah, I gotta get out of the slide. It goes right down in here. I know I do it on the video. At least I think I do on the video. All right. So same thing. I'm just gonna vent it down here. So if you, even if you can't understand or see the, like, I don't know what path that is or which path that is. Based upon what we know, we should be able to kind of dissect this and just go, okay, this is automatic mixture control. It's got a bellows. As we go up in altitude, will it expand or contract?
Expand.
Expand. Okay, as it expands, it has a inverted taper needle. As it expands, that needle is going to open or close. It's going to come down. So right now, it's kind of closed off right here, that area. You see that? And if I contract this a little bit more, this part of the needle is going to come up a little bit more, and it's going to block that off, right? So as we go up in altitude, this expands, the needle drops down, and so this area opens or closes.
Closes.
When it comes down, it opens.
As
thought
this
it
right
kicks
here
it.
slides down, it opens.
Okay.
Let's see.
Is it a 2?
So if we have a needle that looks like this,
Yeah. And the seat comes onto it?
and this is my kind of seat right there, is that open or closed pretty much? And as the needle moves down, will it open or close? Open. Okay, so if the needle goes down and it opens, as it opens, that means more air can flow through there. So how are you going to set this up? If I open it up, more air bleeds out. Therefore, I would probably make it so that what happens as the bleed increases? Well, I'll plummet between A and B. So it would work exactly like this plunger here, but just run it in parallel, which means each can work separately. Just run it down, run it in parallel, so that as it expands, the orifice opens up, and A to B air metering force increases or decreases? Decreases.
So it's like an economist.
What's that?
It's like an economist.
Yeah, economizer. All right. AMC, bellows inverse needles, atmospheric pressure decreases or temp increases, bellow expands, bleeding air from A to B. We also looked at the other type where the AMC is in the impact line, right? Yes.
Mhm.
Is it that time already? I'm sorry. I blew right past it.
We don't have time for breaks.
Nobody's got time for that.